I would have loved to perhaps hold a microphone, pretend like something is happening. But before I start, I'd just like to thank every single person here for coming. I'm very honored. That introduction earlier on was a surprise. I had no idea. So it was quite silly. I'm very honored. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Secondly, the way this was arranged was that someone must have dreadlocks when they're on this panel. So it's not a depiction that it's going to be a dreadful journey. But yes, thank you very much for affording me this time. And I think if you guys can all hear me, am I pretty succinct and clear? You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So my first question is going to go to the both of you. We often think high performance training and rehabilitation are separate worlds apart. Can both of you share the discipline, recovery, and small daily habits that intersect in creating long-term wellness?
Yes, I think I'll start. So I suppose everyone's working towards either small goals, so short-term goals and long-term goals. And in order to achieve these goals, you have to set realistic timeframes and achievable, realistic, small-term goals to end up getting to your long-term goal. And so we would say it's like taking your car to get serviced. You have to get your car serviced regularly in order to have a well-running, oiled car. And so rehabilitation and exercise is all working towards something that you are wanting to achieve. Grant, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think you mentioned two very important words there, being daily and long-term. And in my industry, that is a very important way to look at things. We get the privilege of working with athletes that are on a journey to international stardom or elite level performance, and some of those journeys can be anywhere between 3 months to 6 months to 4 years on an Olympic cycle. And one of the big things we focus on is making sure that there's an understanding of the big picture plan, and we look at that from a macro perspective, and then we constantly work our way backwards to deepen that cycle to such an extent that we know exactly what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. What are they doing in a training session? What are they doing on a daily basis? What are they doing weekly? And what is the plan going forward from there? And it keeps us accountable to the big picture. I think a lot of people focus too much on the end result without looking at where my feet are right now and what is important for me to achieve today in this moment in order to get to the big picture and the long-term success. I think the pace of the world nowadays and social media and that accelerates that perspective, and it's very detrimental to those young minds and young athletes who are trying to achieve, who have the perception of what success is. The second thing is the holistic approach, and it takes a village to work with an athlete. No athlete can be successful at a very elite level in isolation. And often you'll get some athletes who actually don't work with a coach. There's a famous track athlete from Australia called Sally Pearson who got rid of her coach and went on to be a world champion. But she still had someone in her corner, and that could have been her faith, it could have been a partner, it could have been a loved one, a family member, a friend. So nothing ever happens in isolation. The best athletes surround themselves with the right type of people. They work with the rehabilitative specialists. They work with the performance psychologists. They work with the nutritionists. Kirsty's been my nutritionist. I've worked with Kirsty before. They work with the strength and conditioning coaches. They have performance coaches, and it does take a village to get that athlete to the highest level. So
is that the part where we talk about when it's intrinsic, when someone doesn't need
I think everyone is different. Like you do get some athletes who are intrinsically, they can be internally referent but need an external check. Sometimes you get athletes that are very confident, but they just need the coach to say, "You've got this, you can do it," and that exposes their potential.
Okay, and sticking to you, Grant, I've seen you coach a lot of elite athletes. Some of them I've witnessed in the gym. Scotty was the #1 golfer. I'm going to name drop. Thornycroft, the rower. and Tanya, I think she did motocross. So, referencing to perhaps those, what lessons from professional sports translate best into like everyday wellness routines for ordinary people?
So, my line of work is very privileged. I get the distinct honor of working with athletes who have got amazing goals. They've got amazing opportunities, and you get to live that alongside them. You get to be a part of that process. You help them design it, you help them live it out, and sometimes you fail alongside them, and sometimes you succeed alongside them. I never say no to an athlete who's in a very different sport to what I know, because that allows me to learn and take what I learn from them to deliver to another athlete. My background is excessively in rugby, but I've taken a lot of what I've learned from working with Olympic rowers, youth Olympic athletes, world championship golfers, to motocross riders, to team sports and individual sports. And what I identified there, and by the way, it's the first time I've ever been asked this question, what makes them successful? So thank you.
I'm trying to be clever.
You're winning. I looked at it, and there's the 3 C's. One is coachability. Some of the most successful athletes, whatever their age, whatever their level of competition, are coachable. And that makes our lives, you're a coach in essence, and it makes our lives very easy and more progressive when that individual can take instruction, but they can also challenge that instruction, because their intention is to create the best possible environment for them to be the best that they feel they are capable of at the highest level, under the highest pressures. Sometimes just wearing the flag of Zimbabwe in itself brings a huge amount of pressure as a national athlete. I've been there myself, and I've failed and I've succeeded, and I understand it when I'm working with them as a coach. Second thing is commitment. If you get buy-in from an athlete because you allow them to be a part of the process of designing that pathway, there's an accountability. There's an accountability from the athlete to you as a coach, and from the coach back to the athlete, and then from both of you to the system that you've both designed. Thirdly is consistency. They keep pitching. When times are bad, when times are tough, they keep pitching. And there's a very big difference between discipline and motivation, because I've been fortunate to work with Kirsty Coventry in her transition from London 2012 to Rio 2016. And there were days when she was highly, highly unmotivated, did not want to get out of bed and pitch. But her discipline put her shoes on and got her out the door. And there is a difference between the two, and those that you need to help the athlete identify the difference between the two and help them drive the discipline, understanding that motivation can be bad on any given day, and it's okay.
Oh, all right. Is it the same motivation when I get up at midnight to go to the kitchen? I just walk, and I walk to the kitchen to get out.
Yes, but you're an elite performance eater, so that's okay.
Thank you for that. Kyla, you spoke about people being like motor vehicles. What motor vehicle would I be? Like a Mercedes, right?
I would say whatever you want to be.
Right. So, going on to that, in rehabilitation, progress is built step by step, correct? How do small, repeatable habits support recovery and mobility for patients facing perhaps long-term health challenges?
And I'd say there are some conditions that are lifelong. There are conditions that are progressive and that deteriorate over time. And so it's understanding what the condition is, what the problem is, what the pathology is, and knowing what are the things that you can do to help that problem. And it's always a multidisciplinary approach. There's always other people that are involved in your care. It's not just about what the physio can do. There's occupational therapy, there's speech therapy, there's psychology, there's your GP. There are lots of disciplines that are involved in managing care, particularly if it's something that is a long-term problem. And I would say that the biggest advice that I would give to my patients is anything is better than doing nothing. If you can wake up in the morning and do a little bit of exercise, even if you'd planned to go for a 5-kilometer run and you don't end up achieving that 5-kilometer run, you've still got out of bed and you've gone and done a run walk or changed it to do stretches and Pilates. any type of exercise or any movement is going to be more beneficial than doing nothing.
So basically, it's movement.
Movement.
It's all about movement. Grant, we know about the South African athletes and the way South Africa is structured, where the systems prepare young athletes to thrive. Now in Zimbabwe, many youths must rely on like raw talent and like resilience. What happens to systems? Could we help bridge that gap between South Africa and Zimbabwe, to bridge that gap? Because I know we have a lot of talent here.
It's a very deep question that can take many hours to try and redesign and reconfigure and explain at the same time.
Let's be a little bit shallow.
But resilience and talent doesn't get you to the highest level alone, and that's for sure. There has to be that village that supports, and there has to be that pathway that is, by design, very strategic. We could debate this at length, but the difference between us and South Africa is that South Africa has been South Africa on a sporting level for far longer than we have been Zimbabwe, especially at an elite level competition. We simply can't compare the volumes that they are exposed to. To give you an example, Stellenbosch Rugby Club is the biggest rugby club in the world. They are likely to have more registered rugby players there than the entirety of our adult playing population in Zimbabwe as an entity. So they are exposed to far greater levels of competition. They are exposed to far greater systems of support, financial support, professional support. They've got a lot of university programs down there that churn out elite professionals going into the industry, from the rehabilitation sector to the biokinetics to the sports physicians, to the strength and conditioning coaches, to the performance psychologists, the sports nutritionists. We are getting there. There's Chinhoyi University of Technology and out in Bunjura as well, but we can't compare the levels. They also have greater volumes of talent. So it's very difficult to create that judgment. A lot of our problems do stem from an association level, and they do stem from a governance level, and they do stem from an administrative level of a particular sport. We know that no sport can survive without an effective administration or an effective association. And a lot of our challenges come from that. If we have a healthy governance and a healthy, when I say governance, I mean sporting governance, then there's room to develop a sporting pathway and a sporting program right from grassroots, because it is supported.
I get that, Grant. So not all of us can go to Chinhoyi. Number two, are you asking people to breed more children so we have a bigger population? I want solutions now with what we have now, given the resources that we have. And there's Joe in there with a very talented child.
I think we have to change our mindset in the home space. There was some research done with, if any of you follow collegiate sport in America, the NCAA is like your elite level Division I college programs, and that's where your future NBA, your future WNBA, Major League Baseball, etc., your 100-meter track athletes for the Olympic game finalists, because we know all the Americans get into that. But one of the barriers to progress at that level was a household that impeded that athlete's ability to progress, because they protected the child. The parents constantly removed barriers by trying to make life easier for that athlete, and they found that the athletes that came from a, inverted commas, a more struggled pathway were more successful going from the collegiate program into the international or the professional environment. So I do urge families to allow some toughness to take place when a young athlete is trying to find their pathway to being a professional or wanting to test their ability. So allow them to make mistakes. Try not to take away too much. Try not to make their pathway too easy, because it's hard for us as parents to try and make life easier for our children. But if we do make it too easy, we can often create a weak-minded athlete that actually doesn't reach their potential.
Thank you. That's quite awesome, because
sounds a little harsh, but it's real.
As much as we have adults in here, they have children, some have grandchildren, and that's pretty important information. And now going to you, Kyla. You notice I have a white beard. I dyed my beard white. It's black. This is the natural. So I'm not old. I'm not speaking for me, but for those people who are becoming or becoming older, what simple daily practices, not me, daily practices do you recommend to help people stay active, like and kind of independent later as they age?
Yeah. So I'd say there's a big difference between what we call physical activity, which is like going to do the groceries, washing the car, like helping out in the kitchen, physical activity, being active, and exercise. Exercise is structured, it's purposeful, you put on your joggers, you go to gym, you have a plan. And there's an importance between, I'd say, doing both is really important. But as you age, you tend to do more physical activity rather than structured exercise. And there's huge evidence behind the intensity at which you exercise and the heart rates that you're trying to achieve. So for example, going for a walk, we would say that your walking speed is the most important thing, because we're trying to elevate your heart rate to a high level and maintain that heart rate level, so that the exercise is of benefit rather than a stroll. So I would say, on the whole, being more targeted towards exercise as you get older rather than being physically active and busy is my advice.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I'd like to, at least for you to both answer these questions. And I think a lot of people will relate to this. Families often pass down both eating and movement habits. When I mean movement, I'm not talking bowel movements, because I share that with my son, I know that. How can we model healthier choices across generations? Obviously without making wellness feel like a burden or a punishment.
I think I've got a beautiful little daughter, and I'm at that stage now where monkey see, monkey do. Everything I do and eat and how I move, she's watching, and she's trying to model that, and it's elicited a very intrinsic responsibility in me to be, well, if I want her to get the best start in life and to have an opportunity of being an athlete and to get the experience I had of traveling the world and competing, I need to be the person that shows her and is an example to of how we eat as a family. And then I want to turn the garage into a space where we're now exercising in front of her and with her, so that she can see what movement is like, and she can see what a plate of food looks like, and she can be around the two most important people in her life, just doing what should matter on a daily basis without someone saying you need to change it or do it this way. I certainly think as we get older, we make more and more mistakes, and we have to constantly recheck ourselves. So being in that environment, I think I have a direct responsibility to making sure that's a possibility for her.
Awesome.
Yeah, so just to add to what Grant was saying, I suppose it's setting healthy habits, the time that you go to bed, the amount of water that you drink, the food that you eat, the way that you talk about your emotions and feelings, because all of this is connected. And if you can role model that to people around you and younger people, it then builds this openness about discussing, communicating, and modeling what is good behavior.
Thank you for that. Grant, if I can ask you, like strength training is often like overlooked, outside elite sport. Why should building strength be a lifelong habit for everyone?
I mean, I have to take a deep breath, because that question irritates me, and it angers
That's okay.
me.
I'm fine with that. I want that.
It angers me because fitness is free, and it irritates me is because people don't have the responsibility to themselves to accept that fitness is free. As long as your body can move, there's so much that you're capable of doing, from the simplest to the most complex of opportunities. A lot of people say, I don't have the time. If it matters, you will 100% make the time. I've worked with Olympic athletes. When they're traveling, we have minimum requirements of movements and certain things that they have to do. And as long as they're doing that, we're okay. So to say that I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, is a direct irresponsibility to yourself. When you do commit to it, you begin to feel the reason why you made that commitment at the onset there. I work extensively in the ultra-endurance world, so with athletes, with runners that go anywhere between distances of 30 kilometers to 100 miles. one of the biggest learning lessons there is the long-term acceptance that you simply cannot put your shoes on today and run 100 miles. There is a time frame to it, there's a dedication to it, there's a commitment to it, there's a way of understanding what the loads and the demands on your body are and how you go about it. There's an appropriate way of training your heart rates, and there's minimum requirements. So I get people asking me, I'm training for an event. I'm sure some of you may have heard the Sky Run at the end of the year, and there's a lot of people who leave it until the last minute because Zimbabweans can be very good at .com, lastminute.com. And I will give them a minimum requirement as a safety net. It's like, do something that is high heart rate or interval based, do something that is low heart rate, and then do something that is strength. Can you manage that? And the answer is more often than not, yes. So, yeah. Please don't ask that question again.
No, I want to repeat it again, but now slightly different. You talked about elite athletes and prim and proper, you're shaved today.
But you
what inspired you to do the mud run? That's dirty. When's the mud run?
It's next week, Saturday.
You don't seem like the person who created mud run.
But you didn't see me at 10 a.m. this morning when I left site. Yes, well, the mud run's just a charity event.
To what Grant was saying, I suppose when we think about exercise, there's specific guidelines per population. So age group specific guidelines for exercise. And exercise strength is one component of exercise, but the other components are cardiovascular fitness, which would be your running, swimming, riding a bike, rowing machine, and then an aging population, balance, which comes into yoga and tai chi. And so a variety of those types of exercise are very important depending on your age and your goals of what you're wanting to achieve. If you're only doing strength training, it's going to not cross over to balance, which will reduce your risk of falling as you get older, and it doesn't improve your cardiovascular fitness. So just understanding the different varieties of exercise is also important.
Okay. Staying with what you've just said, I know you've worked with oncology and neurological rehabilitation. What role do habits play in helping patients rebuild confidence, quality of life after illness or injury? What?
Yes, I would say it comes back to whether the illness or injury is a long-term problem, it's a progressive degenerative problem that they're going to require input from multiple people for the rest of their life, or whether it's an episode like a car accident or a fractured arm, or something that is, fixable and usually quite fast and has an end game to it. So I would say your rehab and principles that you use are quite different, and the education that you provide to the patient is very different, because if someone who has a long-term neurological condition doesn't understand the progress of the condition and the time frame to make maximal benefit in the first 6 months, for example, and then they can continue to make progress for 2 years or 5 years after that, then they need to put all the effort into that first 6 months to get the maximal out of their recovery.
Kyla, I've referred many clients to you know that.
Yes.
Do you know the guys at the back are coming to you? I injure people. I hurt people. They come to you. So you're like the Zomoko workshop.
Yeah.
Where people are not allowed to go see how the car is being repaired. But they come out fine, and they're proud of what you do. I'm going to share this question with both of you. Many people feel that wellness is expensive or unattainable. What practical low-cost strategies can households adopt to, maybe embed healthy routines? That's to both of you.
In essence, I think I answered that question where fitness is free. In two parts, fitness is free and the household is important to being an example to one another. I worked with a very young athlete from Form 1 through to Upper 6 on her journey to being a youth Olympic game rower. And one of her greatest challenges was what took place at home. She wasn't the principal cash earner because she was a young athlete, so she couldn't buy the food she needed. And that nutritional plan wasn't supported. Yet she was trying to train almost like an elite level professional adult in an endurance-based sport, going to the highest and most competitive environment she had partaken in. So she needed the support of her family and the principles around what it means to live together following a guideline with wiggle rooms, because no guideline is ever fixed and steadfast. So definitely the fitness is free aspect. It's your willingness just to move. You know, everything about the human body is simply designed to move, and it's an easy case of what you don't use, you lose. You know, the central nervous system, the cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory, circulatory system, the endocrine system, just everything about us is designed to move. And if we don't access it, utilize it, and apply the appropriate levels of stress at the right time, so it's the dosages over time, we don't give it the opportunity to be its best for us when we need it.
So, you know, those guys that use buckets for water at home, that's
100%.
functional.
If it's heavy enough and you can move it and lift it, it's exercise.
I'm talking about the buckets of water.
If it's heavy enough and movable enough, you can lift it.
Thank you, Grant.
This is not your conscience. This is me trying to tell you for the last 10 minutes, can you do Q&A, please? But I think you give that a round of applause. Total guys, winging it, grinding it. It is so good that these guys did that. You have mics for 10 minutes. Please.
Oh, wow. They were working all along.
No, they just turned up.
Okay, well, this is the part where people ask questions. Anyone with a question for? A question there.
Thank you, Otis. That's the hard question. So I've been listening to the conversations, and thank you for the panel. I know you guys very well. I'm going to ask you a very difficult questions. So there is the latest thing called insulin, right? You've got people that are injecting themselves a weight loss product. It's a byproduct. So the question is, should we listen to what's online, fast, quick realization how to lose weight, or should we just stay in the gym? I'm not going to say the name of the products that are available in case I get, grant.
I mean, I can only speak.
I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, unless you want me to. Olympic.
Look, I come from an elite sport background where I was drug tested. I had to do urine sample on the side of the University of Zimbabwe track at 8 p.m. at night. It's just not something I look at. I can't remember the last time I took a headache tablet. I tend to just be focusing on the right things, but I think the depth of that question there is definitely a question you should ask Kirsty. I think Kirsty is the professional in the room that will be able to answer that one best.
Grant, I promise it'll be 2 seconds. GLP-1s actually don't make you lose weight, they eat into your muscle. So please understand, it's actually depleting your muscle, not your weight. So you'll lose your overall body number on the scale, but it actually eats into your muscle.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to have this panel. I'm passionate about sport, and I see we've got strength and conditioning, and we've got a physiotherapist, but I still feel that there's a gap in mental wellness, because there is no session where we're going to have a therapist there explain how they deal with these guys who are in sport, because some of the performance that then happens in sport, we then see that this is no longer about sport. It's something that is coming outside from the system. So as a community concentrating on wellness, how then are we incorporating this session for our sporting guys to probably have a panel where they can have therapists explain to them how they can also deal with their mental wellness, because we are mainly concerned about the physical fitness, the bone fitness, and everything. I've worked with them, and I see the amount of time the physio is given. I've seen the amount of time the strength and conditioning is given. I've seen the amount of the gym sessions that they do, but I haven't seen the therapy aspect.
Should I kind of answer that? This is the start of a journey in terms of wellness, and we're going to break it down over time, and your question is certainly very important. And I think perhaps even to go further, we definitely are going to break this down from mental stress related that affects sport, but we certainly will tackle that. But Grant, I think you have something to add.
I think there's definitely a stigma attached to an athlete working with a psychologist, because the assumption is always, oh, well, there's something wrong with you, and it's not necessarily always that. I've worked with a performance psychologist before, and it was about ways of finding how can I unlock potential to do a task that I'd undertaken. I said it takes a village, and the right athletes and the right support groups will always include that performance psychologist and know when and how to access them and the reasons why. It's certainly something that is missing in elite level sport in this country, because if you look at professional athletes around the world, a lot of them struggle so much and so badly from going from participating. Day to day is wake up in the morning, train, live, eat, sleep, movement, rest, recovery, focus on themselves, focus on how fast, strong, how far they can throw and go. And then all of a sudden it comes to an end. And then what? So it's very important that in their transitional phase that they are working with that individual. So hopefully this is, as Otis said, the start of and you brought it up, connecting.
One more question. The gentleman in the shades.
I don't know. You tell me, Grant. How are you? Thank you for the insights that you've been providing so far. I wanted to ask you, Grant, would you say that you are in the business of developing or creating elite level athletes? Put in a different way, do you think athletes are born or made? And if your response to the first part of the question is made, how do you manage the psychology of an athlete who has all of the willingness to succeed, but just isn't going to make it? How do you manage that? Do you, as a coach and a developer of elite level athletes, what do you say to somebody, and how do you manage that?
I'm in the business of problem solving. I think, any athlete comes to you with a problem. My problem is I'm not big enough, strong enough, fast enough. I haven't gotten to a certain level of competition, performance, whatever it is. Your question was deep, and it was winding and intertwined. Let me try and redirect my thought process there. But I've worked with a number of athletes that sometimes their perception is not necessarily a reality based on their ability. And one of the hardest things about being a coach is the willingness to be honest. And at some stage, if the intention does not meet the execution, you have to have that conversation. And it is a difficult conversation, but it protects the integrity of what elite level performance actually is. Was that short and sharp?
So you're encouraging us to tell little Johnny that you're really not going to be Usain Bolt?
No, Otis, there's a way of doing it. But you have to in team sports, I've worked in team sports, and everybody is different. Rugby is a beautiful sport. It's for all shapes and sizes and all abilities and all skill levels. And you have to create a program that gives everybody the opportunity to show their potential. And if at some stage that person cannot keep up with the train, it will leave the station. And it's a classic case of the jersey will squeeze you and find you wanting. It's not me saying no. It's just there's a realization.
I think it would be a miss if we didn't let Miss Chindia ask her question, considering her expertise in this. And please, apologies for Joe. He is a pilot. He spends so much time in the clouds, he can't land a question, but he can land a plane.
Pressure, Kuda. Well, I think my question is for both of you. as a PT, I'd want to know what is the single most critical communication or handoff point that needs to happen when a client transitions from formal rehabilitation with the physiotherapist back to performance training with the strength and training coach? And also, what are 2 or 3 non-negotiable data points that must be shared to ensure like a safe and successful transition to full strength?
I think the way I do it is if I have an athlete and there is an injury or there's a requirement to go and see a physiotherapist, the first session I sit in on, and I want to give as much of the information around what they've been doing in the pathway, where they are in the training, etc., what led to the occurrence of the injury, and we sit and we do a collaboration. I then let the professional take over, but there is a constant reconnection and a two-way flow of information to see where's the athlete, where are they, what can I step in and take over, or where can I back off and make sure that they are still working within the rehabilitative pathway until such a time that the rehabilitation professional says they are now capable of re-entering into a program under your guidance and structure. However, here are some minimum requirements. And just recently I've worked with an athlete with an adductor injury, a long distance runner, and sent them off to the physiotherapist. And the question I asked on Wednesday was, to what intensity can I now prescribe their running sessions in their plan? So it has to be a two-way collaboration amongst the two professionals, because it's you simply can't pull that single piece of rope in different directions, and it takes a village.
So I would say, communication is really important. And when we finished with a patient and are looking at integrating them back into the community, which is ideally what we're wanting to do, because we need to develop sustainable solutions to exercise, and coming for regular physiotherapy is not one of those. And so we've got to look at what the patient was doing prior. So if they were engaging in personal training prior, or if they were engaging in a gym session prior, it's trying to integrate them back into what they were doing previously, but safely. And so we would always do a verbal handover or written handover or some communication with the person that's taking over care of that patient.
So one small...
Our special guest has a question.
Oh, there's a question with the special guest.
Hi, can you hear me? All right. So mine is a bit of a two-pronged question. And I think it kind of follows on to what the previous person asked from a culture of fitness perspective. And the question is really around, why we undervalue, or why do you think that people undervalue rest so much? And what is the cultural shift that kind of needs to happen to start making people realize, as much as you push, you also need to rest in order to, get the results that you're looking for. And the I think from a physio perspective, as somebody who gets injured quite a lot myself, what would you say if you had to teach somebody how to listen to their own body? What would those indicators be, and why? Because I think a lot of times we often think we know our bodies really well, but if you've been conditioned to work through pain, you will push even when that pain is good or bad, whatever that interpretation is for yourself. Yeah.
Are you going to take it? Because
I'll maybe start, and I think the big word is guilt. People feel guilty if they don't exercise, and your brain and your body is like a battery, and sometimes it needs charging more regularly than others. And those reasons could be because you didn't get a good night's sleep. The reason could be because you stayed up late going for dinner. The reason could be because you're really stressed at work. So it's taking into account what's happening in your life and trying not to feel guilty for not exercising or not doing what you were supposed to be doing, because life comes and there's different stages in life and different times where you're under more pressure, or you are not sleeping well, or there's illness or something else going on in your life. So I think it's just listening to your body and working with the psychologist, working with the psychiatrist, working with the counselors to try and identify what strategies and management things that you can put into place to try and create a more holistic life.
Grant?
Sorry, he disturb me.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a very good question there, because rest and recovery is a very underutilized tool for performance. And it's something that is not understood and not accepted and not placed in the plan. You look at some of the most successful athletes in the world. You ask them one question, if you watch their documentaries, behind the scenes training, what do they do the most in their spare time? It's eat and sleep. And that's because they need it. And there's an appropriate way to sleep and rest and recover, and there's an appropriate way to eat and refuel and fuel and intra-fuel. So everything is by design, and there's a lot of science to it. But to give an example, he's a current world-class ultra-endurance athlete. He's a Spaniard called Kylian Jornet, and there's a great podcast that he spoke in depth in terms of what were his foundations to success. And he said, in terms of, this is relative to the sport that he does, which he does multi-day events through the mountains. And he said, high volume, low intensity training is a principal form of the physical. He said, I focus on good food. He said, I focus on my rest and my sleep, and I focus on being kind to myself, the mindfulness aspect. And those are the foundations to him being who is classified as the greatest of all time in his sport.
Oh, thank you very much, Grant. Does that answer your question? Yes? Over to you, Kuda.